So we have just about everybody here, and we are going to talk a little bit about ultra marathon running, and very specifically, we are going to talk about the Diez Vista race. And look at this, Steve Baker. It's like coming down the hill at Emily Murphy at about 6:35. 5 minutes after we start, he rolls in. Although he doesn't usually have a tech guy with him at Croissant Club on Sunday mornings. All right, guys, welcome. We are streaming live, and I am recording this so we can keep it for posterity. The intent today, as I've talked to all of you guys raced Diez Vista last weekend, a variety of distances. So I thought we'd do just a bit of a race recap. Werner, I know you wrote up an excellent race report, but like most people, I haven't read it yet. So
exactly.
People don't read, so I thought we'd try and do this via video and capture a bit of the spirit of the race that you guys just competed in. For those of us that are, looking at our race schedule for next year and what we want to get involved with, I thought this would be a great way to do it. So we are talking about Diez Vista. There was two options. There was a 50K option and a 100K option. That happened, was it last weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Just last weekend. So we were April, what was that?
14th.
April 14th was race date. And that was in Port Moody, British Columbia. Is that correct?
So you're technically in Anmore.
Anmore, yeah. Okay. I used to live up in Belcarra, so I know the area. So we're in the lower mainland of Vancouver. And just some gorgeous area, Bunsen Lake and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. So maybe what I'm going to get you guys to do is just do a quick introduction and give us sort of the 30-second your running history. So we have a bit of a sense, are you a rookie? Are you a veteran? And I'm going to go just based on how I see you guys on the screen. So I'll call out names, and Sonia, we'll start with you. Who are you?
Okay, Sonia Young-Smokanaus. This was my second 50K. My first one was in October in Canmore, the Grizzly, and a lot of fun. And I really didn't know what I was in for. Great. It was quite technical compared to what I'm used to. My 30-second running history. I've been running since I was 13. I started running track in grade 7, got into cross country in high school, and that's where I really fell in love with running. And I've been running, except for maybe about 4 years off when I had my first two kids. I've been running for about over 30 years.
Perfect. Okay, so that's Sonia. Jason, tell us who you are.
Hey everyone, Jason Wynn. I've been ultra running and really just running since I've been 41 when I moved to Edmonton. It was all a ruse to get a girl, and so I've run and completed the Canadian Death Race, Sinister 7, Blackfoot Ultra. This was my first time at the 100K distance officially. I haven't entered a 100K race before, so yeah, about 5-6 years of serious running.
Nice. And Kelly?
Hi, I'm Kelly Adel. I actually only started running about 5 years ago when my brother and I had a great idea to go run a marathon. He's yet to complete a marathon. I've completed 7 since. This was my official first 50K. I did do Blackfoot with a friend, and we just kind of did it for fun. So technically I've done 2 50Ks.
Nice.
And now I'm dabbling into more trail running, and still got a few marathons that I want to do.
Awesome. Werner, how about you?
So I'm Werner. I've been running for about 12-ish years, 11, 12-ish years. I started because I used to be really, really fat. And so I figured that the best way was to start moving, which was a really great idea. So in the last 10 years, I've lost like 150 pounds. And but I only started racing in the last 3-ish years. So in the last 3 years, I've run, I think, 7 half marathons, 1 marathon, a 40 miler, and 100K.
Woo woo.
That's about it. Yeah.
Nice. Mr. Baker.
Hey, yeah, so Steve Baker, and I've, I guess I'm on start when I started. much like imagine everybody I was running at my younger years, but then I started back in 1997, and frankly, I took it up because of I was going through a pending divorce, came through a divorce, and it seemed like a good way to run away from all that crap and think about a lot of things. And I actually started training for that year, and then stupidly at the start line switched over to the Edmonton Full Marathon. And that was the introduction to the insanity that has now been the last 20 odd years. But I flipped over to trail running back in 2000 at the very first taste of the Canadian Death Race. And I've ran it every year since it started, either as a team or solo. I've had the good fortune of enjoying that event, and then other events like Sinister 7 and another one, Squamish, which is a big fan favorite of mine. That's why I really wanted to go up to Diez, because it's another one of Gary's races. So it was great. I got a lot of these races under my belt. Unfortunately, I'm racing very injured right now and stupidly, and I should probably just be sitting on the sidelines. But instead, I got to have the joy of watching Vernon go blown by at rocket speed when he was early. I tried to take a picture of him, and he goes, "Come on, dude, get the damn picture!" And I couldn't make my phone work. I tried to go. He was crushing it, and a few other friends out on the course, and I was thrilled for how well they were doing. So it's all good fun.
Good stuff. So we've got quite a range of experience and ability, I think, around the table, which is kind of cool. Sonia's a rocket when it comes to road races, for sure. I've seen you do some halves and fulls, and trails relatively new for Sonia as well. Steve's sort of the veteran, and everywhere in between. So everybody except for Werner ran the 50K at Diez, correct?
I kind of...
No, I ran the 100 as well.
You ran the 100 as well, Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah, I call what I did not so much running.
You hobbled your way through 50K?
It was the ultra shuffle, yeah.
All right, so Diez Vista had a 50K option and a 100K option. From a cost standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, my research shows that the 50K was $95 and the 100K was $175. So just quick thoughts on value for dollar. You guys saw any comments?
If you ask me, I think it was extremely good value for what you're getting out of the event. We got a nice little swag bag. Sad that we didn't get a medal at the end. And in my opinion, throw an extra couple of bucks in the registration fee and get a medal, because they're always kind of cool to be able to have.
Yes.
Or move your ass and get the top 3 and you get a nice little cool piece too. So, but yeah, I think the value for the race was really good.
Okay.
I think if you take 100, if you take 175 and you divide it by 100, it's 1.75. But if you take 50 by 95, it's much more. So I got more value.
You got so
Yes.
the
Per kilometer, I literally just got more value.
So race farther is the moral of this story.
Yeah.
That is the moral. Just if you run more, as long as the cost is low. I mean, think of all the aid stations I hit you guys didn't hit. I hit twice as many.
Vern,
Think of all the hours. Think of all the hours you ran that we didn't run.
Yeah.
That's just free food, Sonia. That's just free food.
Yeah.
Why don't you next year just keep running around and around, burn up all the time. Hit all the
This sounds great.
145 kilometers, man.
Yeah. It's the new race. It's just don't ever stop until they make you. And then that's how, and it's literally just how much did I pay per kilometer.
So clearly we know who's going to dominate this conversation here. Hey, so as a moderator, I've got my work cut out for me. Do you guys have any other comments on value for dollar? Anybody that hasn't spoken up yet? Although I do have mute buttons, so that's a good thing.
I think it was really good value. I've paid that much for a road half marathon with just 1 or 2 aid stations. And we got, the swag was good, although I think, I upgraded to a hoodie. So I paid a little bit more for that. But like Steve, I think a medal would have been cool, although I don't really have a good place for my medals. They're just kind of sitting in a box right now. So for me, it would not, it would just be something I had to find a spot for. But the aid stations were amazing. I thought they were absolutely great. And for the amount of money we paid, and we found really cheap plane tickets to Abbotsford as well, it was just really well worth it.
Nice. Any other comments, Jason or Kelly?
The costs associated with the race are the registration fee is the least of your worries. That's usually the other stuff that you remember afterwards. It's the accommodation, it's the food, it's the gas, it's the airline ticket. So just to line up and race, if you happen to live there, it's a super cheap race.
Right. So that leads me to the next question that I want to talk about is convenience of location, getting there, accommodation, all of that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
Well, I was lucky enough that I've got family that live in the Vancouver area, so
Nice.
I was able to drive in a couple days early, spend some time with family, and then head off to the race early in the morning without have to worry about a hotel or a B&B or something. So, and Mom makes free food too.
Nice.
Yeah.
What part of town are they?
North Delta.
So that's a bit of a trek, though. To
It was about an hour to the start line.
Yeah. Okay. Sonia, Steve, Werner, Kelly, what do you guys think?
Well, for me, it was the flights were completely reasonable. We ended up staying in a B&B, which I do admit I didn't do the research on. We ended up with 3 of our party members not being able to come, so I did just pick what they found. We were right inlet front, I guess, ocean front. So we did pay a little bit more. I think I would do a little bit more research into the B&Bs. We kind of felt we all paid a little bit much for what we got room-wise, but we had the whole house to ourselves, which couldn't have been better. That was ideal. So
Nice.
Yeah, just to build on what Kelly said, Kelly and I shared a room, and we had thought a third person was going to join us, so we paid extra for a cot, which was good because then we didn't have to share a queen size bed. We each had our own space, but it was a bit pricey, and I ended up I had a generous offer from Werner to stay with him, which would have been free, and I totally would have done that if I wouldn't have had to leave his house at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
His start was way earlier, and my Sinister 17 going down together. So Kelly and I are on a race team for Sin 7, and we had booked this B&B, and it was only 5 minutes from the start line, and so those factors made me willing to pay a little more. In retrospect, like, I don't know, maybe I would. It was a lot of fun to have the B&B, and it would have been a lot of fun for Werner. But I think that extra sleep I got was pretty nice too.
Nice.
I don't really appreciate saying that Sonia is giving me grief. I mean, it really would have been a great experience for you to wake up and, shuffle my ass out.
I probably should have come out and helped crew you for 4 hours before I raced.
There wasn't much crewing at that time. I was still pretty well put together at 4 hours. So,
or perhaps, Sonia, you could have just started running when he did and got more value for your dollar.
Yeah, value, Sonia.
There you go. Yeah. next time, sign up for the 100K, Sonia. I think that's
okay. Werner, we're doing the 100K next time.
Oh,
I will never step on that course again.
I'm not sure if I will either. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet right now either.
So what was your take on the overall organization of the race? So Gary Robbins is the race director for this one. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, personally, just to sound off myself, from what I saw, I thought it was extremely well done. I'm a big fan of Gary's for a whole variety of reasons. Mike, you've had the opportunity to be out at his race in Squamish as well, and they do an excellent job there. Phenomenal volunteers. I think he said that count was 130 volunteers involved in it. I thought volunteers were one of the best I've ever experienced at the aid station that had the drop bags. They were so spot on. Because I arrived, they're calling your number out. I come in through, the guy's handing me my drop bag. They were incredible. So that my time in the aid station was pretty quick in turning around. And that was nice, especially if it would have been for likes of folks that were really moving along, like Sonia was and Werner was too. For those folks that were really powering through the course in times of the essence in the aid stations is bonus. So from a structure of the event, the communication of it, really, really good. It's a despite what Werner says, it's a great course. It's a really good, challenging course. It's a lot of fun, and I don't know. I ranked it up there. I'll go back. I want to go back, but I want to be able to go back healthy and run it.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I want to go back as well and finish that thing. Gary does a lot of races. He's seen a lot of races. He has his trail series that he does, and he's got a ton of experience at putting those things together. And I'm sure he can snap them up and put them together and get them out of there pretty quick. So, yeah, very well organized. He's got a whole series of races I'd certainly recommend doing.
Anybody else comments on overall organization?
I just think it was phenomenal. It was so well put together, and like they were saying about the aid stations, just unbelievable volunteers, the best I've ever seen. Every aid station, somebody handed me exactly what I wanted. When I was at that, the third aid station, I said I wanted Coke, and I turned around and my bottle was filled with Coke, and I was out the door ready to go. So,
Sonia, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I had the same experience at the aid stations. Like at the first aid station, so I was trying to keep I had a Solomon pack with 2 soft water bottles in the front, and I didn't want to take them out because they're hard to get back in. So I was trying to have the guy fill it. Like my only complaint is like he spilled on my gloves. So then they were wet the whole time, but it was totally fine. My gloves, the only issues that I had were really with myself. Like I could have taken my gloves off. I could have taken my water bottle out. The only thing I wanted out of my drop bag, I had hidden so well in there that I couldn't find it and just gave up on it. So, but they had it there for me, and the guy was helping me look through it, and everything was great. Yeah, people were just so friendly and supportive. At the last one, someone asked if I wanted them to make me a grilled cheese sandwich, and I was really tempted to stop for it, but I decided to keep going.
I had the grilled cheese. It was amazing.
Wow.
That was the best part. That was the best grilled cheese I've ever put in my mouth.
Yeah, there's something to be said for volunteers, and it's interesting when you look at it and you talk about from a race director's standpoint. Obviously, there's something to a leadership aspect that attracts the caliber of volunteers that we see show up. So that's pretty cool. Teresa, welcome to the crew. I see you've hopped on.
Hard, but I did. I couldn't find how to do it my first time.
Oh, look at you. You got the swag going as well. This is fantastic.
Of course.
So we were just commenting. We were just commenting on overall organization of the race and how everybody felt. If you have any comments on sort of the overall, how well the race was put together.
I found the race was wonderful done, very comfortable. They make me feel very welcoming. Everybody was very, very nice.
Nice.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
No, that's great. So we've talked a bit about aid stations. So how frequent were aid stations?
So it technically qualifies as a well-supported race because they're about every 10 kilometers or less.
Nice.
Really, the farthest distance that you ran, I think, was 12-ish K, and that was between aid station 1 and 2, and then in the reverse direction 2 or 10 back to the start. But on the way out, they did have a water station halfway up Diez, so you could stop, get a final refill, and then continue on. And so, I mean, considering the amount of food that they had and how frequent it was a very well-supported race.
Okay. I think too, I 100% agree on that. One thing I decided partway through the race, and thinking of going back ideally next year, going back to run the 50 again next year and running healthy, I would run with just 2 handhelds. And, handheld that's got a pocket in it that I could put a gel in, because the aid stations were frequent enough that I felt I could sustain and get to them, that I just need to fuel up by the handhelds, and that I could fuel up for any nutrition I needed at the aid stations. I wouldn't bother with a pack next year, personally, if the weather was right. If I didn't have
I
to
agree with that too.
From a 100K point of view, I kind of thought there was too many aid stations, that they showed up too often, and I needed to probably slow down on my consumption of nutrition, but that's another story. But yeah, very well supported and well stocked.
You felt you ate too much?
What's that?
You fueled too much?
Yeah, fuel too much, yes.
Well, I didn't know there was such a thing in 100K.
Oh, there can be. Certainly. There can be. You can eat too much. Yeah.
I don't know if we were at the same race, Jason. I don't know if I ate nearly enough. So maybe we could just split the difference, and you can feed me while we run. How about that?
Well, I had support there at each aid station, making sure they were keeping me full. So
yeah.
See,
So I agree with what Steve said. Although I was glad to have my pack because I sweat a lot, and it actually was a pretty nice day. It ended up being an absolutely perfect day. And I probably went through about 3 liters of liquid, some water, and some, like I had my own tailwind, and I forget. I'm probably mostly refilled with water, but I only ended up having 2 or 3 I had endurance tap gels, and I had some honey stinger gummies. I only ended up taking in maybe 2.5 of my own bits of fuel because I'm getting Coke and pickles and other stuff at every aid station, and oranges. And they were so well stocked, I really didn't even need to eat half of the stuff I had along with me. So it was great.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Any other comments on aid stations? Otherwise, let's jump in and talk about the course. Because, man, well, this is why we're having this conversation. Because looking at those pictures, I thought, I know where I'm going to be next April.
Yeah, I'll stand up real quickly on this one, or at least try to. The pictures that were posted don't do justice for some of the brutality behind that course. When it got technical, in my opinion. The pictures looked all nice. Like there's beautiful ones of Sonia running through the forest, running across the bridge and whatnot. And they're fantastic photos. But honestly, Mike, you got into 8 stages that were just rough and ugly. Like there was some really technical, in my opinion, crazy climb on the first part. Like it was almost scary. If you had vertigo issues, you could be screwed because you were really hand bombing. So in running that in the rain would have been sketchy. I have to say that. They did it in the rain last year. For the race, they poured the entire race, and I said to the folks I was near as we were climbing that stuff where you're almost like that, said I can't imagine doing this in the pouring rain because the footing would be really good. So anyway, but it was fun. We got off that. There were some incredible spots. Bar none, my favorite spot on the entire course were the logs. Hey guys, when you hit
On the top of Diez.
that was so cool, so cool. Those logs that were floating and whatnot. Yeah,
It was like the scene from Big when they're playing the piano in the department store.
yeah.
We were going to come back and we were going to film that scene from Chopsticks, but we made some choices.
You'd actually have to get there.
That's true.
Yeah, a lot of times at first initial climb after the first 15K of the 100, and you go up Diez, and the top, it's a beautiful view at the top. It's just a typical West Coast view, beautiful island and mainland vistas. But the actual climb up there, several times, like I thought there was a couple mountain goats passing me, running by. I'm thinking, how are you doing this? Because you just had to step so carefully and hold on and make sure that you didn't slip and fall and die. It was a tough 10, 12K to get up and over that hill for sure.
The key is to not fear death, Jason. The key is to embrace death.
Have your affairs in order before you go to the race.
I was surprised at how I do have fear of heights, and I wasn't very afraid of heights, but I became very afraid of ankles because I turned my ankles so many times on that technical area, and I ended up starting to go really slow, especially on the downhill where I had been looking at the elevation map and thinking to myself, okay, I'll have to hike up and I'm going to be picking my way up. And it was super technical on the way up too. But then on the way down, I thought, I can cut loose and make up some time, but absolutely not. It was just, there were people who fell around me. I didn't fall once, which surprised me, but I did keep turning my ankles. And the problem is I wanted to look around at the beautiful scenery, but I had to keep my eyes down on the ground in front of me during that 12 kilometers. And every once in a while I would slow down and make sure I looked up because I wanted to remember what it looked like. Because the pictures don't do it justice, either from a perspective of how beautiful it was or how hard some of that section was. So that was the tough part for me. And if I do go back, I'm going to do a lot of balance and ankle strengthening work and practice some complicated downhill running because there aren't really trails like that in Edmonton.
Yeah. No. Steve, Erica's asking how it compared to Squamish from a technical standpoint.
Honestly, I would say this one was probably a touch more technical. But not the entire course, because once you got off of Diez down to the trail past those logs and whatnot, there was some beautiful running area where you could have opened up, and I'm sure these folks did. In fact, I saw Vernon, who was just ripping along, and clearly from the times of everyone else on this, they were moving along there. So from the technical part of it, when it was technical, it ranked right up there. There's, certainly, as you know, Mike, when you come down off Galactica at Squamish, that really steep stuff, that's just riddled with roots and how steep it is. This had a lot of roots, a lot of rocks. And that to me was the part that got really dicey. And then what was just mentioned too about the fear factor of imminent death, because one slight step the wrong way, man, you could be in some serious trouble on this course. You could trip and fall a long way. You don't have the same thing happening at Squamish, where you're going to fall on as many rocks. But that's not to belittle Squamish. Squamish I love that race. It's a tough course on so many parts of it. But I would certainly say when it gets technical on Diez, it's a little bit more technical than Squamish is.
Kelly, anything to add?
I remember at one point when we were first going up, there were so many rocks, and I looked up just to see how much farther I had to go. And I could see these little people in the distance, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to make it up there. That had to have been a good 5K away from where I was, and I was already half up. I just took a moment, I took a breath to realize that I was really doing this, and it didn't even look like trail to me. It looked like just literally up a mountainside. It was unbelievable.
But you had fun?
Oh, absolutely.
And are you going back next year?
Not sure at this point. My quads are still not quite cooperating.
I probably should have done this like the day after.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody saw Sonia's little video, or she had on, I think it was on Instagram, Sonia, where she's walking down the stairs and just chung, 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 I had to put on there, laugh my ass off on the picture because it was just so funny. I could feel her pain, what she was doing. So.
My quads are almost better. Not quite, almost.
So Sonia, I've got to ask, as you've traditionally been a road racer, what are your thoughts? Like, do you get frustrated with some of the stuff that's just not runnable? How does that affect your mindset?
Yeah, so I love trail running. I'm pretty new to it, and I tend to be I kind of like to cut loose, and I can sometimes be a little bit of a risk taker and kind of reckless. But when I was a kid, I tried to drive my bike with my feet on the handlebars or whatever. But I find that when I am running really technical trail, especially downhill, I'm pretty risk averse and I'm kind of cautious. And so what I noticed, I tried not to get discouraged on the first 12 to 15K when it got really technical and I kept rolling my ankles. I tried to remind myself that I was supposed to go out easy for the first 30K because on the technical part, people were passing me. Not as much on the climbs as on the downhills, and people would go past me really quickly. And for a little while, I ended up running with another woman, and we just chatted for a while, and she ended up finishing, oh man, probably like 40 minutes behind me. But during the technical part, we were keeping pace with each other. That's how the technical part affected me, because I was being quite cautious and I became afraid of turning my ankle. So that part definitely slowed me down. I can't tell you for sure that impaired my race. Like maybe it helped me have what I needed left at the end in order to be able to run the runnable parts really quite quickly. And I did run the last 1.5 kilometers very fast because a woman caught up with me at that point, and I had told a lot of people that my goal was to place in the top 5, and I knew I was in 5th place, and then somebody caught me and I thought, oh shit. So then I ran scared for the last 1.5 kilometers and ended up turning in a pretty fast finish there. And if I hadn't had some of those slower, picking my way downhill, who knows if my quads would have held out for that.
Right. Well, it's a good thing you're not competitive at all. So
I figured I would keep going until my legs gave out. There was one point where I turned my ankle pretty hard and I limped for a little while. And then people were telling me, oh, just next aid station and you can drop out there. But then I thought, I've come 30 kilometers. I'm going to just see if I can keep running on it. And then if it stops working, I guess I'll have to stop. But it ended up, I had that adrenaline. It went okay.
Nice. Anything else that anybody wants to add about the course?
So the course, we painted this picture that there's this torrential climb, but that that like 8 kilometers where you're actually traversing the mountain is extremely technical. But there is like 5 to 8 kilometer stretches that you can run really fast. Like, I would say both sides of Bunsen Lake were extremely runnable. Like I was putting in like 5-minute, 5.5-minute split times just from, they're like these shallow little rollers, and they're just forcing you to go and putting you in this false sense of security early in the race that, oh, maybe I can do this. But those are littered throughout the course. And then, you hit this riverbed and there's some torrential friggin' Nile River coming down it, and you pull out your life vest so you don't die.
If one of your ultra rules is to keep your
part
feet dry
scared
as
me.
long as possible, if one of your rules is to keep your feet dry as long as possible, it's probably not the race for you.
Yeah, no, it's
That's always
definitely
my
not.
goal going in, is try to keep my feet dry as long as possible, and that was gone after the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, the Sassamat Lake, in the dark, we start out on these boardwalks and stuff, and you're like, oh, this is going to be okay. And then we get to the west side of the lake, and it's like, oh, that is ankle deep and 40 feet wide. Great. Well, I'm going through the middle. So
Wasn't a lot of choice there.
Not something you're jumping over. So how many of you guys will go back?
100%. Yeah.
I'm back.
Yep. I'm going back. And Mike, you're coming next year.
Yeah, next year for sure. I'm in. I lived in Belcarra. I lived 5 minutes from Bunsen Lake for a lot of years.
Yeah. No, go back for sure. And the bit of redemption there. And I want to be able to do just what Vernon was talking about, is those real runnable parts. I want to be able to get through the ugliness at the beginning, and then be able to be trained well enough and be healthy enough to then run that stuff and really enjoy what's there, because it's a fantastic course. And as we said earlier, really well run and such. So, I'm all over it.
So Werner, you said you're never setting foot on that course again. So why is that?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, there's so many races, and I don't race a ton. So I mean, I would say most years I only race 2 to 3 times. Part of it is that I have a Scottish wallet, and so it refuses to put out that kind of cash. But also, there's so many races. I mean, even in the Lower Mainland that I can take advantage of, or even in Washington. And so, having done the 100K course, that was a demon. I might go back and actually try the 50K course and see like how fast that course can actually get. Because in the 100K course, the one difference I would say from the 50 to the 100, other than running longer, is that you had to save enough to get back over Diez in the last 10K. And that alone, I wouldn't be surprised if more people dropped at aid station 10 simply because of time, or they just couldn't do it because it was looming over you for the past 90K that you had to do it again.
Right. So that leads to another question that I hadn't put on here, was cutoff times. Generous, or?
They had like 40% attrition rate in the 100K. So, I mean, that tells you something about cutoff times or difficulty of the course.
But that's what they should be like. Really, if you ask me, I think they've got to be, that's kind of the standard. Dare I even suggest that? I think that's kind of, the standard, the norm, that it gets to be about that. And it just pushes people, I guess, to be able to, improve their fitness level and improve their ability and understand what they get into. And to your point too, Ernie, when you get into the difficulty of the course, it's not surprising. Like I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but there was only one true cutoff on the 50K.
No, that's right.
And that was general.
It was at the 50, right?
Sorry?
You cut out there,
at 7 hours.
Yeah, 7 hours, and it was at about 37K.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, that's right.
7K. And I thought that was pretty generous. And so the people that I saw that likely weren't going to get to that, I think it would have been pretty evident to them anyway, because they just weren't moving. They weren't moving. Hell, I was ahead of them and I was hobbling like something fierce. And so I thought if they weren't able to get to that, then they were going to have a difficulty anyway, making the bitter end. So.
Okay, good stuff, guys. I think what we'll do to wrap up, I'm going to go through the list one more time and give you one last opportunity just to give any comments. And I'd also like an overall rating, 1 to 10, on what you thought of the race. So Kelly, I've got you up first.
Okay. It was phenomenal. I guess 10 would be pretty high. I'll say like a 7 or 8. It was way up there. It was way more technical course than I trained for and that I was prepared for. So thinking more on about going again, I would, if I had the proper training and knowledge to know that this course was so technical, my training would have changed and maybe made the outcome a little bit different for me, knowing how crazy it was out there. But it was so much fun. I looked at my watch at 40K and I was like, oh, I'm a marathon in, whatever. I got 10 left. Like it wasn't, oh my goodness, I can't go 10 more, like in most cases that you feel like you're burnt out. I didn't really have a full burnout because it was so beautiful every step of the way and it changed, so it wasn't boring.
Nice. Jason?
What was the question again?
Just final thoughts, and if you had to rate the overall race on a 1 to 10.
Yeah, 1 to 10, I'm going to give it like an 8.5, 9. Beautiful. It was great to be back in the home province racing again. So I know a lot of people who spend a lot of their life on the prairies get awestruck going back to races like that. And I don't tend to get that way, but I do really appreciate how beautiful it is. And, you know, if you are coming from a place where you don't get a chance to hit trails, you know, you really have to prepare because it is early in the season. It's, you know, it's midway through April. The snow is still on the ground here in Alberta, and got to find a way to hit some hills and train that. It's just getting the legwork in and getting your endurance up isn't enough, as I found out. It isn't always enough. So,
Great.
8.5.
8.5. Nice. Sonia?
I think I'd probably give it an 8 or a 9 just because, well, I don't know. I don't really know where it fell short. I don't think the course fell short or the organization fell short at all. So it was really great. I'm kind of with Werner in that I'm not sure I'd revisit it because I don't do a ton of races. This was only my second ultra, but part of me does want to revisit it, knowing what I know now about the course and just hopefully working on some stability and strengthening for my ankles and also working on some of my downhill running and that kind of stuff. One thing that, you know, I was working with Coach Jacob for 3 months up to this race. And one of the things he told me well, and it's more of a mental than a physical thing, is just to focus on my strengths. And I did have a playlist and headphones in case I needed just a little boost during the race. But I found that just because of the surroundings and because my mind was in the right place, I enjoyed very much almost the whole time, even when I was kind of struggling and afraid of some of the technical parts. And also just feeling so much support from the running community in Edmonton. People had given me great advice. You know, I slathered diaper cream all over my feet and they came out of all that water perfectly. I had no problems. Carrie had given me a waterproof jacket in case it rained all day. So I had that ready. I just felt very well prepared and well supported. So I think that was, yeah.
Nice.
That was part of what made the race so great. And maybe I'm 50-50 on whether I'd go back.
All right. Thanks, Sonia. Werner, how about you?
So it's an interesting thing. I probably won't go back just at this early in the point. I've got a lot of more races that I would want to spend the money on right now. In terms of the overall value, like where does it rank? I don't have a lot to judge it against. I've only run a couple ultras, this is my second ultra, and I've only run a couple trail races. But I'm pretty sure the Belcara section, so in the 100K you initially head south down to the point, right where the Indian Arm River enters the inlet. And I'm pretty sure that sets a record for the most road on a Gary Robbins course, because you're actually climbing just like the forestry or like the the picnic access road for, I don't know, 5K or so. So, I mean, there were aspects that I wasn't really 100% certain about. But it definitely had something for everybody. You know, the really technical climbs, it had a lot of runnable sections. It was a well put together course. I'm not a huge fan of looped courses. They play games with my head. And so coming back into aid station 7, the announcer says, "Oh, and Werner will be heading back out on a second loop anytime now." And I was just, it gives you too much opportunity. I find that once I get out there, I don't want to see the start line until it's actually the finish line type deal.
I've already done this.
Yeah. And so in terms of course, I'd give it a 7. I mean, it was difficult. It had great sections. I really loved the organization of it all, but I probably wouldn't go back for another 100K there.
Okay, fair. Thanks, Werner. Teresa, how about you? We haven't heard a lot from you. Are you still with us? All right, Steve, how about you then?
So as I said, I'd go back. I will state this, again, for the 50. When I was running that thing, I said, there's no freaking way I want to do the 100 on this thing. And part of it was because of the technical piece of it and just crushing them by foot. But the other part was to what Werner just touched on, and the loop piece of it. So I thought, what a mind screw that would be to be going out there. And I felt for those folks when they're going back out. And I said to them, how much further you guys got to go? You don't want to know. Actually, I kind of do for my own selfish reasons. But so from the perspective of the race, again, I thought the value was really good. In fact, one of the best, because you're not paying that much money for the event compared to some that you were paying hundreds of dollars for getting not a heck of a lot different. From the event perspective, from the aid stations and all that other stuff in SWAC, I've referenced about the course, but as an overall, I would have ranked it about an 8. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know, as much as I say that, I don't know what I would improve. The course is what it is with regards to the loop backs, even on the 58K aid station, but that's all. But the final thing that I do want to reference in this is this has got to be seen. Werner, nice shorts, Werner. That was in his race report. So folks who are listening to this, if you have not read his race report, you got to read his race report. It's awesome. If not for that picture. So
it's a pretty stellar race report, Werner. As I was reading it, I recognized all the parts you were complaining about, and I felt like your descriptions were pretty good.
All right, Werner, if you could pop a link in the comments on the video, that'd be great, or I'll do that as well. All right, guys. Well, we are up. I was hoping to keep this around half an hour. We're about 45 minutes, but there's a lot of you, and this has been great. So hopefully there's some value to people that are looking at races for next year and thinking about what they want to consider doing. So I'd actually like to start doing a lot more of these. So we'll keep this up for future races. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks.
Thanks.
See ya.
Oh.